911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. How are you all? Hey, Rescue. How are you, honey? Good to see you. Yeah, I cleaned over the weekend. I got put all my Christmas away, got all my rugs washed, my throw rugs, and cleaned all my floors, my bathrooms. And hey, John, how are you? Good to see you. So yeah, I got my house all cleaned after the holidays. I hope everybody's doing well. Just kind of jumping on. I'm going to start doing a few of these impromptu live streams just to see how things go. I always was live at night, and I have a lot of time during the day, more so than I do at night anymore. So just thought I would see how this plays. I didn't advertise it or anything, so I know a lot of people won't even know that I'm live, but that's okay. So how is everyone doing? Have you all recovered from the post Delphi Delulu crazy crap that's still kind of going on out there? Let me know in the comments how you guys are feeling. We do know that Richard Allen was transferred to Westville Correctional. Hi, Julie. Hey, Outback. Good to see you guys. He was transferred to Westville Correctional, which I think is hilarious, that is where he's going to be housed, at least for now. It looks like that's where they put him. And I just thought that was funny, given the take on the case and how everybody was saying that while he was at Westville, he was being mistreated by the guards and so on and so forth. Frank Meister's kept me up to date a little bit on some of the happenings. I haven't been on Discord for over a month, so I don't even have a clue as to what's going on out there. And I know that you guys do, and a lot of you follow some of the channels and stuff that I don't even tune into because I don't have the time, but which is fine. Those people can continue to spread their crazy and be, stuff. But I am just really like shocked at the fact that there are still people. Yeah, John, absolutely. That there are still people out there that are professing Richard Allen's innocence. And, the fact that this is all whatever. I mean, these people obviously didn't watch the same trial that I watched. They didn't watch the same evidence being put forth that I watched. And, I was able to be in court for a day. I was also there for the sentencing. I followed everything really closely. I trust and absolutely completely trust what Rescue and Frank Meister and some of Turbo and Teddy and Tom Webster. There are just so many of them that were there and were there every day that I trust, and I know what happened, and I know that Richard Allen is guilty of this crime and that justice was served. So why these people feel the need to continue to do this, the only thing that makes any sense to me is that they're hoping to profit off of this somehow, because there's no other reason for them to continue the deluluing and being crazy out there. It just doesn't make any sense. I do want to let everybody know that upcoming this week, I'm not sure yet what day it's going to happen, but it will happen this week. I am going to be doing a live stream with Frank Meister, and we are going to be interviewing Jerry Holman. I am really looking forward to this. Quite frankly, I have a lot of questions for him, and I didn't want to bombard him with questions about things during the time that I was able to talk to him at sentencing, because I just didn't feel that it was that proper time. And I felt that I would get that opportunity at some point. And so the opportunity has presented itself, and he has agreed to sit down with us and talk to us about the case. And so I am looking forward to that. If you guys have questions that you would like to have asked, please either put them in the comments or go to my email and email me the questions, and I will put together a list from the community for him. And I will go over those questions with him as well. I am really excited about this interview. I have not talked to anybody else. I thought about reaching out to see that if I could get an interview with Doug Carter. I really would like to speak to him as well. I think that Nick is probably not be a person who wants to do something like this. So my thought with Nick was to maybe send him a list of questions and see if he could answer questions via email, perhaps. And then I could do a live stream that way. I know people would like to talk to jurors. I know people would like to talk to people, but I am not going to reach out to any jurors. I will put out there that if there are any jurors who wish to speak about the decision that they made on the Richard Allen case, feel free to contact me. My email is behindthecrimedoor@gmail.com. Just a minute, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, sorry. Sorry about that, but I left my I left my drink in the other room, and I needed it because I was getting dry. My husband has been sick for 13 days. Today's the 13th day. And thank the Lord, I have not gotten sick, but he has been the sickest that I have seen him in the 47 years that we've been together. And he has all of his vaccines. He's got his pneumonia, RSV, influenza, COVID. He's vaccinated. So whatever is this crap that is going around, so many people have been sick. I hope you guys are all staying well and safe, and nobody's been too sick, because it's been really bad around here. For all my friends and loved ones that I care about that are in Indiana, I know you guys got dumped on, and those who are in Southern Illinois got dumped on. We only got a dusting. We got like less than an inch of snow. But it's supposed to go down in the deep freeze. And all I can tell you is I cannot get warm. I have been so cold. Ugh, it's just nuts. But why does my phone on my computer want to ring when I'm doing a live? I don't get it. It's really weird. So anyway, where were we? Oh, we were talking about, yeah, thank you, Rescue. Yeah, John, I heard that you guys got it too. I have family in Virginia, and I heard that you guys got kind of bombarded with it as well. I wanted snow. I was really disappointed and mad about it. Actually, I was really, really mad about it because I wanted Loki to be able to play in the snow. I mean, I rescued a husky in August, for those of you that don't know, and he's a year old, and he needs to have some snow, and there's snow on the ground, but it's barely, there's barely any snow. He loves it. He goes out on my deck and just laps it up. He loves the snow. So I want to see him in some deep snow. I want to be able to take him out and play with him in the snow. And that's not going to be us, it looks like, at least anytime soon. So anyway, getting back to what's going on with Richard Allen. That's the updates that I know about and the things that I'm working on regarding the Delphi case. Yeah, Rescue, I heard that you guys got it too. I was watching for you, and I knew that Frank Meister was supposed to get it down there too. And I was like thinking about all of you guys over there, because I would have loved to have had it. Seriously. I was ready for it and really wanted it, and was very, very sad when it didn't happen. So, what was I going to say? The kids went back to school here today. And so it's kind of, everybody has kind of gone back to, the holidays are over. We got through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, and now here it is, getting ready. We're into the second week of January already. It's just insane. But yeah, I have been, hold on one second, because somebody is texting me, and my kitty, it's time for his annual checkup. So I have to take Finn to the vet and get him his shots and stuff. So that was what that was all about. But anyway, I thought that today, when I jumped on, that, we could just talk about some of the profile cases that are out there. I'm still working on Evansdale. I'm working on my live stream that I'm going to do with Drew Collins, and I'm waiting for Drew to get back with me. We're going to talk before I actually have him on the show. And so I'm just waiting. I know he's busy. And when that happens, I will be covering Evansdale. We're going to talk about that. I would really like to do a live stream with Turbo, because Turbo was heavy into Evansdale, and probably even more so than anybody else that I'm aware of, that I know personally. And she deep dove everything. So I really would like to kind of, have her on and talk to her about some of the things that she knows about this case. I've watched a lot of stuff on Evansdale over the last couple of weeks because I wanted to really catch up on all of the POIs that could be potential suspects out there. And there are quite a few, guys. Actually, I was really kind of surprised at the number of people that have been mentioned, or that have been looked at, or that at least I hope law enforcement's taking a look at. And I firmly believe that when we look at a lot of these cases, a lot of the time when people go missing or people disappear and bad things happen to them, it's the last person who sees them or has contact with them that's responsible. And if you can pinpoint who that is, who's that last person that was with them or saw them or whatever, 9 times out of 10, you've got your culprit and you've got the person. And there's a person in the Evansdale case that saw the girls that day on their bikes. He talks about seeing them. And I hope that they've really looked at this person, because that person really gives me that kind of a vibe of, well, wait a minute. They rode past you and you were outside and blah, 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 and you were the last one to see them. So that, I think, is something that needs to be looked at further. And hopefully, like I said, law enforcement has done their due diligence and they've done all of that. Again, with the case in Evansdale, we don't know, because everything is so tight-lipped on the Evansdale case. Iowa is so similar in how they handle their investigations to Indiana, and they just keep everything. They don't tell them anything. Even Drew doesn't know much about what law enforcement knows. And that has to be so frustrating for families that are living this nightmare, wanting to know what's going on with their case and how is it being worked and everything. Yes, Mr. Steve is still looking at Evansdale as well as Ruckus. They both are. Mr. Steve is absolutely busy. He's working so many different cases. I need to get with him and we need to do a live together and get an update on some of the stuff that he's doing. But he's super, super busy, you guys. And he's working a lot of his foundation. He has a lot of cases that he's working on. So one of the cases that I wanted to talk to you guys about today that I thought we would talk about is the Dardeen family murders. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this case or not, but this crime was considered at the time so brutal and so gruesome that people were surprised it was being reported on daytime television. And I wanted to talk about it because it happened in Illinois, and I ran across it and I thought that we could talk about that today. The Dardeen family met a truly disturbing end in their small town of Ina, Illinois in 1987. More than 10 years later, a serial killer who was sitting on death row in Texas claimed that he committed these crimes, along with more than 70 other killings. Yet the truth of the Dardeen's final moments remains uncertain, even as we sit here today. It was on the evening of November 18th, 1987, when police first discovered the brutalized bodies of this family. The police visited the trailer because Russell Keith Dardeen, who was 29 years old at the time, hadn't shown up for his job as a water treatment plant operator at the nearby Rend Lake Water Conservancy District. And reportedly, Keith, he preferred to go by his middle name, was an extremely reliable worker. When he neither appeared for work nor called in to report his absence, his supervisor placed calls to both of Keith's parents, who said that they hadn't seen him. By evening time, though, the police went to the Dardeen family home to investigate, where they met Don Dardeen, Keith's father, who had brought keys to the family's trailer. What they found inside was a crime scene so violent and gruesome that it would haunt everyone involved for years to come. Elaine Dardeen and her 3-year-old son, Peter, had been beaten to death with a baseball bat that had been a birthday present to Peter from his father earlier that year. To make matters worse, Elaine had been pregnant with the couple's second child, a little girl, and the beating caused her to go into labor. The killer or killers had shown no mercy, however, and the newborn baby was also beaten to death as well. Elaine was bound with duct tape and gagged, and all three were tucked into bed together. The area had never been cleaned up, indicating that the killer or killers had been in no hurry to vacate the crime scene. I'm sorry, the area had been cleaned up. The initial suspicions that Keith Dardeen had brutally murdered his own family were quick to be talked about, but they were quickly laid to rest when his body was also found the following day, lying in a nearby field. He had been shot 3 times and his penis was cut off. Police found Keith's car parked outside the police station in the nearby town of Benton, some 11 miles from the Dardeen home. Blood on the interior indicated that it was the likely site of Keith Dardeen's murder. Such a brutal crime would have been enough to shock a rural community such as Ina, but the fact was that the Dardeens were not the first victims in the area. Over the past 2 years, Jefferson County had been home to 15 homicides, including one particularly grim case in which a teenager living in Mount Vernon killed his parents and 3 siblings. While the spate of murders seemed unrelated, it was enough to drive the locals into an intense state of fear. During the days and weeks following the discovery of the Dardeen family murders, locals took to openly carrying shotguns, and the coroner in nearby Franklin County was quoted as saying that locals were so afraid to let strangers into their homes that if he ran out of gas on a country road, he wouldn't even bother knocking on the door and would instead simply walk to the highway and hitchhike a ride. In spite of a massive investigation involving 30 detectives dedicating full-time work to the case and interviewing more than 100 people, the police were not able to determine a motive for the killings, let alone find a likely suspect. As time passed and the case grew colder and colder, Joanne Dardeen, Keith's mother, continued to pressure the authorities to try to solve these murders of her son and his family. She gathered more than 3,000 signatures in an attempt to get the Oprah Winfrey Show to do a segment on the murders, which were deemed too graphic for daytime television. Simply put, no one wanted to talk about the case. Similarly, America's Most Wanted also initially passed on the case, though they later did a segment in 1998 that produced no new leads. It wasn't until the year 2000 that new light was thrown upon the brutal slayings of the Dardeen family, and that year, a serial killer named Tommy Lynn Sells, who had been arrested after cutting the throats of 2 girls near Del Rio, Texas, began confessing to other murders that he claimed he had committed over the years while riding the rails and working at traveling carnivals. One of the killings that Sells claimed responsibility for was the murder of the Dardeen family. According to Sells, he met Keith at a truck stop or maybe a pool hall, and Keith invited him home to dinner, where Keith then propositioned Sells to engage in a threesome with him and Elaine. Or maybe not. Maybe Sells just saw the for sale sign on the Dardeen's trailer and with it an opportunity. Part of the problem with the confession of Tommy Lynn Sells is that he didn't always stick to his own story, let alone the particulars of the case. When Sells first confessed in 2000, Joanne Dardeen was convinced of his guilt. As the years went by, however, her conviction waned, and by the time Sells was executed in 2014, her doubts were significant. Tommy deserved to die for what he did, but I wanted him to stay alive until I knew positively that he didn't do it, she told the Associated Press. Though Sells confessed to more than 70 murders at the time of his execution, authorities were only convinced of his guilt in 22 of his supposed killings. The brutal slaying of the Dardeen family wasn't one of them, and to this day, this chilling Illinois murder case officially remains unsolved. I can't even imagine being a family member of this family, knowing what happened to them and not knowing who did this all these years later. 1987 is a long time to wonder what happened to your family. And when you have these people who are these mass murderer, serial killer types confessing to multiple homicides, it's hard to know which ones are true and which ones they're just trying to get famous for. This case is so horrific as to what happened to this family. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to digest. I can't even imagine what law enforcement must have felt coming into that home and finding that scene. But when I stumbled upon this case over the weekend, I was just thinking to myself, you know, to be the parents of these family members, their children were murdered, their grandchildren were murdered, and how horrific to not to this day know for sure who committed this horrific crime. There are so many cases like the Dardeen family out there, you guys. When you go looking for true crime cases, I can't even tell you how many of these cases are out there that just haunt people. You know, there's just so many of them. And this one really got me. I just couldn't believe that. The Elisa Lam case that happened in Los Angeles at the Cecil Hotel is another case that is unsolved and has caused people to question everything that they knew about the bizarre death of Elisa Lam. And it mystifies everyone. And for those of you out there who aren't familiar with the Elisa Lam case, on February 1st, 2013, Elisa Lam vanished while staying at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. This 21-year-old Canadian college student was in the middle of a solo West Coast tour at the time of her disappearance. And in an attempt to locate her, the Los Angeles Police Department released the last known images that they had of Elisa, and it's a snippet of security footage that was taken in the Cecil Hotel's elevator on the day that she vanished. In the video, Lam enters the elevator and presses nearly all the buttons, causing the car to stall. As the doors remain open, Elisa Lam peeks out into the hallway, exiting and re-entering several times. She rocks in place and gestures with her arms as if communicating with someone off camera. Her movement is unsteady. Finally, Lam disappears down the hall to her left, and the elevator doors close behind her. This chilling clip made its way online, where it quickly went viral. Everyone had a theory. Some theorized that Lam was on drugs, that she was mentally ill, and that she was having some kind of psychotic break, or both. Others claimed that she seemed to be possessed or hiding from someone or something that cannot be seen on the video. The Cecil Hotel is known for its dark history, however, and Elizabeth Short, aka also known as the Black Dahlia, supposedly stayed at the Cecil Hotel before she was murdered in 1947. Her case still remains unsolved. Goldie Osgood, known as the Pigeon Lady of Pershing Square, was raped and murdered in her hotel room in the Cecil Hotel in 1964. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and his copycat Jack Unterweger lived at the Cecil Hotel while they were committing their crimes. The hotel has also played host to many suicides, including one woman who was killed who killed a pedestrian after jumping from an above window. 2 weeks passed and Elisa Lam remained missing. And at the same time, guests at the Cecil Hotel began complaining of low water pressure in their rooms and brownish water seeping out of their taps. On the morning of February 19th, a hotel employee named Santiago Lopez went to check on the hotel's 4 rooftop water tanks. He noticed the top hatch to one of the tanks was open. Lopez climbed a ladder and then another ladder and peered inside. He was horrified by what he saw. Floating face up in the water near the top of the tank was the body of a young woman. It was Elisa Lam. Lopez told the police that no one could access the roof without tripping an alarm. In fact, he had to deactivate the alarm system before stepping out himself. Only hotel staff possessed the keys to the rooftop stairwell and the door. According to the hotel's engineer, even if you did reach the roof without setting off an alarm, you'd have to climb onto the water tank platform, scale a second ladder to get to the top of the tanks, lift the heavy metal latch, and jump inside. To this day, no one knows how Elisa Lam reached the roof without setting off the alarm system, or how she gained entrance to the tank, and then how or why she drowned. The autopsy revealed that Elisa Lam's body was found naked in the water, with her clothing, the same clothes as she had been wearing in the elevator video, strewn around her. Her body was moderately decomposed, as it had been approximately 2 weeks since she had last been seen alive. There was no evidence of assault, sexual or otherwise. No drugs besides ibuprofen were found in her system. And at the time of her death, the water tank was about half to 3/4 full, leading to some questions how an able-bodied woman could drown in a relatively small amount of standing water. In preparation for her ill-fated tour of the West Coast, Lam had started a Tumblr, a landing place for quotations and fashion photography. There was nothing unusual about the site itself, though eerily it continued to update even after Elisa Lam's death. While clearly Lam had scheduled her Tumblr to post automatically, it left many to wonder if the dispatches might be messages from beyond the grave. The Lam family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, but their case was dismissed in the late 2015, and the judge said that there was nothing that the hotel did to allow Lam to enter the roof or to suggest that the roof or the water tanks were safe. Though the Cecil Hotel had seen its fair share of deaths, the notoriety of Lam by case pushed its reputation over the edge, and the hotel rebranded on the Stay on Main. So it's no longer known as the Cecil. The new name or old, the bizarre death of Elisa Lam lingers on in the halls of this Los Angeles hotel, and the chilling security footage lingers on as well, haunting you long after you watch it. I mean, it's really unnerving, you guys. If you haven't, I suggest that you go out and watch it. You can see it out on YouTube. All you have to do is look for it. One of the other cases that I have always been troubled or baffled by is the Maura Murray case. And it's another situation where her mysterious disappearance sparked absolute true crime phenomenon. There have been so many stories done on Maura Murray, and it's chilling and unexplained, and it's still unsolved. And I'm hoping that one day she will find justice, because something happened to her, and I feel that she ran into foul play. One February day in 2004, Maura Murray climbed into her car and drove away from her dorm room at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. She headed north, and her destination was unknown. And as the night descended, a local in the New Hampshire area caught one last glimpse of her and her wrecked vehicle along a desolate stretch of Route 112. By the time police responded, which was just a few minutes actually, to the crash, Maura was gone, seemingly vanishing into thin air. Maura Murray's disappearance shocked her family, her friends, and nearly 20 years later, the cold case continues to baffle authorities. Armchair detectives and internet sleuths around the world have looked at this case. It's everywhere. It has inspired podcasts, it's inspired books, to an increasingly bizarre web of conspiracy theories and true crime message board threads. One of the things that I feel true crime has with this web of conspiracy theory that's out there, you guys, is because when there isn't explanations and law enforcement doesn't have anything to tell you, people will come up with these crazy conspiracy theories. And yet this case still is a mystery, and it remains, what do we truly know about the disappearance of 21-year-old Maura Murray? Oxygen Channel launched its own investigation into the Maura Murray case with a 6-part series called The Disappearance of Maura Murray. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it. The investigative journalist Maggie Freeland helms the search and enlisting the help of former U.S. Marshal Art Roderick as they trace the details of the baffling case. I hope that she gets justice and we find out what actually happened to her. She was a bright life and a bright light in her family. On the surface, Maura Murray's life seemed to be ideal. She was a promising student at the University of Massachusetts in pursuit of a nursing degree. She came from a very loving family, and she shared a strong relationship with her boyfriend that she had been in a relationship with for a few years. Yet all is not what it seemed. And in November of 2003, around 3 months or so before her disappearance, Maura was caught fraudulently using a credit card number that was not her own. And the young woman had to have been desperate. She used the card only to order pizza, charging less than $80. On February 7th of 2004, 2 days before her disappearance, Maura's father, Fred, arrived in Amherst, Massachusetts for a visit. Maura borrowed her father's car to go to a party, and around 3:30 a.m., while driving back to Fred's room at the Quality Inn, Maura hit a guardrail on Route 9. The police responded to the scene, but they didn't perform a sobriety test. Maura may have believed that these encounters with the law would tarnish her professional record, thus threatening her dreams of becoming a nurse. Some sleuths point to this as a motive for Maura to disappear on her own volition. The theory seems extreme, actually, because Fred Murray does not buy it. Since there was no ticket cited at the scene of the crash, there would be no reason for Maura to believe that this was the end of the line for her. Nevertheless, something changed in Maura after the crash that night. In the early hours of February 9th, Maura researched and printed out MapQuest directions to 2 different locations, one that led to the Berkshires, the other to Burlington, Vermont. Throughout the day, she also phoned vacation rentals in the Northeast, inquiring about availabilities, and nothing was booked that anybody was ever able to find. Then Maura's messages took a dark turn. She wrote to her professors and work supervisors stating that she would be away from campus for a week. The reason? There was an unexpected death in the Murray family, but no such death had occurred. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Maura Murray got into her car and left the UMass Amherst campus. Inside her vehicle were clothes, toiletries, some textbooks, and her birth control pills. Soon after her departure, Maura was recorded withdrawing $280 from a nearby ATM. She then entered a liquor store where she purchased wine, coffee liqueur, and vodka. Security cameras captured Mara at the ATM, providing some of the last confirmed sightings of her before the disappearance. In this footage, Mara was alone. When Mara meant to temporarily escape the pressure of her life or disappear for good may never truly be clear. But upon leaving the liquor store, Mara drove north and then left Massachusetts. Sometime after 7 p.m., 145 miles north of Amherst in Haverhill, New Hampshire, a resident heard a heavy thump outside her home. She peered out her window to see a car crashed against a snowbank on Route 112. The witness phoned the police. Meanwhile, an area bus driver who lived down the road came upon the scene of the accident. He noticed a young woman whom he later identified as Mara Murray. The bus driver offered to help her. The young woman convinced him not to call the police, claiming she had already spoken to AAA. The man agreed to the woman's request and left. Yet he found her claim about a phone call odd. He knew the area lacked cell phone service. Upon arriving home, he decided to phone the police. At 7:46 p.m., the police arrived at the scene. So within 45 minutes of the first call from the young woman who witnessed the thud outside her house, the police arrived at the scene. The car was locked, its windshield was cracked, and the airbags deployed. The police later reported that they found an empty soda bottle that smelled as though it had been once filled with alcohol. But Mara Murray was nowhere to be found. The bus driver who stopped and spoke with Mara didn't think she seemed intoxicated. Nevertheless, many theorists believe that Mara had been drinking that night. A shaken and inebriated Mara may have left the scene of her own accord. She may have stumbled into the dark woods and lost her way, or, as Mara's father maintains, she may have encountered a dangerous individual who wished to do her harm. The following day, at 12:21 p.m., police issued a be on the lookout for the young woman. 24 hours after the discovery of the abandoned car, police officially declared Mara Murray missing. Mara's family, especially Fred, view the police's investigation as substandard. They point to their slow response and failure to thoroughly investigate every lead as the reason why Mara's fate remains a mystery. The police, meanwhile, have criticized Fred's involvement in the investigation. A 2014 article that appeared in Boston Magazine cites Jeff Strelzin, the chief of the homicide unit at the New Hampshire Attorney General's office and the lead prosecutor in the Murray investigation, who said, Fred Murray has been a difficult person to deal with from the very beginning. Strelzin went on to describe Fred's anger at the police as understandable but misplaced. As relations between Mara's family and the police soured, rumors of infidelity and secret lives surfaced among armchair detectives and internet sleuths intent on cracking this case. James Renner, the author of True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Mara Murray, claimed to have evidence that Mara and her boyfriend were cheating on one another. Others believe that Mara may have been pregnant, bulimic, or both, and fled to escape judgment from her loved ones. Theories then split over whether she simply got lost and perished somewhere in the woods, purposefully disappeared to begin a new life, or if someone snatched her along Route 112. Despite legions of obsessives searching for the truth, there have been no definitive breaks in this case 20 years later. What do you guys think happened to Mara Murray? It's a truly a sad, sad case. And I know I have some close friends who really followed that one, that case just really closely. I've got one more case that I'm going to go over with you guys today, and then we'll get out of here. But this case is truly interesting as well. And this case happened back in 1945. 5 children, the Sodder children, disappeared on Christmas Eve. What happened to them? What was their fate? Were they kidnapped? Were they murdered? Or are they still alive somewhere? A drive to Fayetteville, West Virginia is nothing short of inspiring. Winding roads past dark groves of sycamores and ash that cling to the rigid steps of the Appalachian Mountains. Around one bend near the community of Hawk's Nest is a kitschy relic of roadside Americana, the Mystery Hole. Entering Fayetteville itself, you cross the impressive New River Gorge Bridge, a 3,030-foot steel arch that spans the cool waters of the New River. But for decades, travelers coming into Fayetteville were treated to a far more somber sight, a billboard depicting the photos of the 5 lost Sodder children and a plaintive plea from their parents seeking news about their fates. The official explanation of the disappearance of the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, aged 5 to 14, is that they died in a fire that consumed the Sodder family house on Christmas Eve, 1945. The alternative explanation entertained by the Sodder parents is that the Sodder children who survived the blaze and an active network of amateur sleuths is that the children were kidnapped from the burning home as retribution against the family. George and Jenny Sodder were both Italian immigrants, although only George, who immigrated when he was 13, spent an appreciable amount of time in his home country. The couple was a shining example of the American dream. George went from working railroads in Pennsylvania to owning a small trucking company in West Virginia. He and his wife had 10 children and lived in a 2-story home just north of Fayetteville, where many Italian immigrants and their descendants had settled. George was many things, a hard worker, a dedicated family man, but he was never one who shied away from sharing his beliefs. He frequently discussed his disapproval of fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, who was seen by some pre-World War II Italian Americans as a model of strength who had made Italy great again. Arguments with other Italian Americans were common, and the family claimed that during the war years, George was the subject of threats. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the family was celebrating with 9 of their 10 children. War was over, which meant the eldest son, Joe, would soon return from the army. Daughter Marion had bought presents for the youngest Sodder siblings with income from a new job. At night, 5 of the Sodder children retired to the upstairs attic for bed. In the middle of the night, around 1 a.m., Jenny Sodder awoke to a bang on the roof, followed by a rolling noise. She drifted back to sleep, but awoke 30 minutes later to the smell of smoke. It wasn't long before she discovered that a fire was burning from a fuse box in George's office. The Christmas lights still twinkled in the living room downstairs, and the children were still asleep in the attic. George, Jenny, Marion, 2-year-old Sylvia, and 2 of the older Sodder boys escaped the house. One of these boys, John Sodder, initially claimed that he went upstairs to wake up his siblings. He later changed his account, saying he had only called up to them. The fire could not have occurred at a more disastrous time. It was Christmas in the middle of the night, and the town of Fayetteville was shut down. Many local men were still in the military, and the fire department was barely staffed. In addition, a series of mysterious misfortunes made rescue impossible. A high ladder, usually stored against an external wall, had vanished. The water in the water barrel was frozen, and the phone line was down. George Sodder tried to start his truck so he could park below the attic window, climb up to the roof, and rescue the children, but the engines wouldn't start, despite working fine earlier that week. Desperately, George climbed the walls and broke open an attic window, cutting his arm in the process. Even still, he could not reach the upstairs bedrooms. Heartbroken, the Sodder family watched as their house and they assumed their 5 children burned throughout the night. The fire department didn't arrive until 8 o'clock the following morning, and one reason for their lateness, Fayetteville's fire chief, F.J. Morris, who could not drive his own department's fire truck, a cursory 2-hour examination ensued, even though fire investigations often lasted days or even weeks. No bones were ever found, and the Soders were told their children must have burned away completely. Later, George Soder, unable to endure the sight of his ruined home, used a bulldozer to bury what remained under 5 feet of dirt. In the coming weeks, the Soders came to believe that their children had in fact been kidnapped, perhaps by mafia members who resented George's anti-Mussolini rants. The missing house ladder was found tossed into a nearby ravine. Investigators concluded the fire was the result of faulty wiring, even though George recently had an electrician rewire the house and the Christmas lights remained on as the fire burned. A nearby hotel owner claimed to have hosted strange lodgers traveling with a set of children. After chatting with a local crematorium, employee Jenny Soder determined that there was no way the children's bones could have been incinerated. The Soders hired a private investigator who soon unearthed a shocking lead. Fayetteville's fire chief, F.J. Morris, had apparently found a heart among the ashes of the house. He secretly packed the heart into a box and then buried it. The tip was initially confessed to a minister who confirmed the account to George Soder. When confronted with the accusation, Morris admitted to the story. He took Soder to the spot where he buried the remains. Indeed, a box was buried in the ground with some flesh inside, but a local funeral director declared it was fresh beef liver that had never been exposed to extreme heat. Many point to this bizarre twist as evidence that Morris was indeed trying to convince the Soders that their children had died in the fire, throwing them off the youngster's true fate. In a sense, the theory may be true. Morris may have been trying to convince the Soders that their children died that night, but it wasn't because he was covering up a kidnapping. Rather, he was covering up his own incompetence. By the chief's own admission, he could not drive his department's fire truck, and the short 2-hour investigation on Christmas morning was hardly adequate. And George Soder may well have buried the Soder children's remains too deeply when he bulldozed dirt over the smoldering ruins of the house. The Soders themselves never abandoned the theory that their children had been kidnapped. Billboards and advertisements asked at their fates. In 1967, a photo was sent to the Soders claiming to portray a now-grown Lewis, although this may have been a cruel trick played on a family whose tragic story had by then become national news. Although multiple follow-ups on various tips have yielded little to no substantive developments, the kidnapping theory lingers to this day, and the case has never been solved. I can't even imagine how you could lose 5 children and never know what happened to them. I mean, absolutely never know what happened to them. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you? Hey, GP. Hey, Cecil. Yeah, Maura Murray was definitely going through something, and I don't know how we can get past that behavior. It brings me to the case that we just had happen in late October, early November, of the girl from Hawaii who went missing, whose father went just heartbroken looking for her and ended up committing suicide over it. And she walked across the border into Mexico. Here were all these people looking for her, And she says that she didn't see any of the coverage of her case or anything like that, which is quite possible. You're in a foreign country. The last thing you're doing is probably watching the United States news. But you would think that, I don't know. I just, people do strange things. Things happen. And even though all of these cases that we talked about are open cases with no seemingly answers to them, my heart breaks for these families because they, to this day, do not know what happened to their loved ones. And I agree with you, Beach Fairy. There's no way that those children disintegrated in that fire in that house, because there's no way that it would have burned hot enough to do that. They would have had something, some remains of something would have been found. And for them not to have found them leads all kinds of questions. And my heart just breaks for that family. That's all. I mean, I can't imagine what they must have gone through. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to pop in today and talk about some cases and see how everybody was doing. And that's about it. I've been reading some good books. I got some books for Christmas, and so I've been doing some reading. And yeah, other than that, everything is going well. All of my animals are doing well. I haven't had any problems. My chameleons are doing really great. I am on the search for a male chameleon. I want to find a male. I have 2 females, and not that I'm going to breed them or have anything like that, but I do want a male. I hope so too, Beach Fairy. It's one of those things where these are the kinds of cases that the DNA advances that we've made over the years will help to solve some of these cases that are out there. The sad thing is that a lot of these departments just don't have the resources or manpower to focus on these cold cases anymore. And so unless someone picks the case up and really tries to run with it, they're just left. The Elisa Lam case has bothered me from day one. I don't necessarily believe that she went up there on her own accord. I find it very difficult to believe that she put herself in that water tank and took her clothes off because she was frantic or whatever. That case just really bothers me. And because of the nefarious nature that happens in that hotel, I just really think that somebody did something to her. And I just can't imagine that that's not, not something. I feel for her family. I really do. Yeah, I think crowdfunding is a great way to help these cases, to get DNA tested and to get evidence relooked at. That's one of the things that's going on, in the JonBenét case. Just as we're speaking, they are trying to get some of this evidence that they have retested. And I think it's time. I think that they should be able to do genetic genealogy on the DNA that they have from the JonBenét case, and we should get a resolution. It's too far gone. We just had another anniversary of her murder, and JonBenét deserves justice. So let's hope that this coming year something breaks in that case. But yeah, it was good to just jump on and kind of do a out of the way kind of live. I Didn't really have anything special. I just was going to talk about those few cases and give you an update on what was going on. Frank Meister jumped on, and as I told you, he and I are going to be interviewing Jerry Holman, so that's going to be happening. And I miss you guys. I do miss discussing and talking about Delphi. I've had to figure out other avenues to deal with my my true crime desire. Oh, thanks, Beach Fairy. I'm glad. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to start doing a whole bunch of different things with the channel this year. And my channel is going to go different places, and I am going to start doing covering more cases that we've never heard of, and just talking about them, and getting them out there. I think a lot of people like to hear about cases like that, that are true crime connoisseurs that, follow cases. Everybody keeps asking me, my family, everyone, Kristen, what case are you going to grab a hold of that's going to take you like the Delphi case? I don't know if there will be a case that does that for me. I don't know. But hey, Joe, how are you? I do know that I will be following the Idaho case a little bit closer as we get closer to trial for Bryan Kohberger. I think that case has some potential to have some big things happening in it. I look for the defense to do a lot of crazy stuff right before trial. And it'll be really interesting to see where that all goes. But I still believe that they have the right guy. And I do believe that he's guilty of that crime, by what I've seen. But I'm keeping an open mind so that I can really look at some of the evidence and stuff that comes out in court for the trial. But yeah. So yeah, guys, take care of yourself. Make sure that you guys are staying warm, because the polar vortex is supposed to be coming, and it's going to be crazy cold. It's already crazy cold here, and I'm freezing to death. As I said today, I'm sitting here in my office, and I have a space heater in my office, one of those fake fireplace space heaters, and I love it. And I've used it in here for years. It works so good at keeping this room the constant temperature that I need it to be for my spiders and for my chameleons and my reptiles. I did, just so you guys know, I did name my my two female chameleons that I have, Elphaba and Glenda, because for those of you that don't know me really well, The Wizard of Oz is my favorite all-time movie. And so anything Oz is my my corn snake, my baby corn snake, his name is Oz. So yeah, there you go. And he's doing really well, by the way. He's doing fantastic. Listen to her. Oh, for the love of God. I love you, Rescue. And Alan said to tell you hello, by the way. I hear that you and Frank spent the day together going to Allen County. I bet that was great. I wish I could have been with you guys for that drive. I hope we can all get together again really soon, because I miss you guys. And oh yeah, they do have heat light bulbs like that. Yeah. The sun comes in, I have a picture window double window here in this particular room. And I get this when we have the sun, which we haven't seen, it comes in here so well. And my chameleons and my spiders that are close to the windows, my tree frog, they love that. So yeah. Rescue says, I took 1 foot in that office and walked back out. She's like, creepy spiders everywhere. Yeah, I do have spiders everywhere. I do. I have Leo, who sits right here, who's my leopard gecko. And he's a cutie pie. He's really getting big. He's really growing. But I do have a lot of spiders. I was hoping that Velvet, one of my velvet spiders, would come out today and I could show you guys her. She was super tiny. I mean, like super tiny when I got her. And she's this big now. I mean, she is so cool. She's one of my very favorite animals that I have. She's got so much personality. But yeah, take care, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and I will talk and chat with you all later. Love you all. Goodbye, everybody.